All right, a very good morning wherever you are watching us from. When it gets to 8 a.m., you know, on Fridays, always is Kirk in the morning as we talk matters to do with politics and what has been transpiring all through the weekend in regards to the state of politics in the country. There is not much to talk about, but so much to talk about the making of the Ruto government, right from his inaugural United Nations address. So many features that came out of that particular speech. We'll be talking about that later on in the program. Also, we'll be taking a look at the challenge and the problem that Ruto is facing in naming of his cabinet. He was to name the cabinet on Sunday before jetting out for the United Kingdom and later on in the United States of America. But when he comes back, the elephant in the room is the naming of the cabinet. What do we expect of that? We'll be talking about that later on in the program because my guests are already here in our premises. Levi Munyeri is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Bikwa Shoya also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And Felix Wesonga is a political analyst and also a political commentator. They will be talking about that as we also seek to get answers on what come out of that particular speech in regards to the making of Ruto's foreign policy. We'll also be talking matters to do with the greedy members of parliament. The induction process of the members of parliament has been going on, but what came out is the initial address of what was not the elephant in the room. The members of parliament coming out strongly to make a statement in regards to what they feel is a subversion of their remittances by the SRC in regards to cutting down their salaries as well as their allowances. What do we expect from the members of parliament? That is also what we'll be talking about. And this Friday, Entertainment Friday, is right back. We'll be talking matters to do with music because Flozy TK is a voice trainer and also a musician. She'll be gracing our program this morning. Keep interacting with us on our social media pages. We are streaming live on Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and YouTube, Kirk TV Kenya. My name is Chris Sambo. Welcome aboard as we take a few hours to tell you what has been happening and different discussions. But as we always do, first things first. We begin on the roads and take a glimpse of what is happening on the major roads this morning. Good morning. All right, and as we take a look at what is happening on the roads, let me just do that so quick as we also try to catch up with time. Just looking at the Central Business District where the activities begin. The Central Business District doesn't look so much good. I can see in my map there is a lot of movement right at the Central Business District. The red colors, of course, signifying that there is a lot of movement and snarl-ups at different points of the Central Business District. Moi Avenue looking so good this morning. Haile Selassie Avenue as well. Also, Nairobi Central looking so much good. And now, looking at the major road, one of the major roads linking into the Central Business District, I just want to look at Ngong Road, which I can see from my map doesn't look so much good because from different points you can see some snarl-ups in the map. There is so much snarl-up of Ngong Road, where that is the road linking all the way to the Central Business District, descending down. You can see some different small snarl-ups at different intervals, especially when you get at the Mbagathi Highway, the roundabout there linking Valley Road and Mbagathi Way, descending down all the way to Upper Hill and then Haile Selassie Avenue and getting to the Central Business District. That is what Ngong Road looks like, different snarl-ups at different points. I just want to take a look at yet another road which links the Central Business District, and that is Thika Road. Thika Road doesn't look so much bad, but when you get past Survey, Utalii, all the way getting into Pangani, Ngara, entering the Central Business District doesn't look so much good. That is a route that you need to avoid this morning if at all you are planning or intending to use that particular road from Thika Road, as from survey, doesn't look so much good. If you can find an alternative, then it will be of your importance. And then looking at yet another road, Mombasa Road doesn't look so much bad. From my map here, I just see Mombasa Road doesn't look so much bad, as well as the expressway, Nairobi Expressway, doesn't look so much bad. As you can see right there, it's a clean highway where you can be able to use either Mombasa Road or the Nairobi Expressway. This morning looking so much good. And then taking a look at yet another road, that is Parklands Road, which is one of the major roads as well, linking into the Central Business District. Doesn't look so much bad this morning, because from my map I can see that Parklands Road looks so much good as you even descend down into the Central Business District. But at least when you get at Ngara is where now you encounter traffic while entering the Central Business District. And that is what is happening on the major roads this morning, right from Mombasa Road looking so much good this morning, as well as the expressway, Thika Superhighway not looking so much good, right from Pangani and starting from Ngara all the way to the Central Business District. Doesn't look so much good. Gong Road looking so much good despite different snarl-ups at different points. And that is what is happening on the road this morning. Now we get to take a glimpse of what is happening in the newspapers and what the papers have written this morning. All right, and then what is written in the newspapers this morning, I have a glimpse of the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and also the People Daily. I just want to begin with the Daily Nation, which talks about, as a top picture there, of the SRC chairperson, and says Lynn Ngich, who is one woman against the greed of members of parliament, and goes there to shortlist and say that even before the new parliament settles down for business, the lawmakers have resorted to the hostage-taking they have previously exploited to arm twist the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to yield to their higher pay demands. That is a story there by the Daily Nation, talking about what we'll also be discussing in our discussion this morning as we seek to unravel what the members of parliament objectivity is. Just looking there, the picture of SRC boss Lynn Mengish there, talking about the stalemate that is there between the SRC and members of parliament in regards to their remuneration and higher salaries. And the in-depth of that story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. And on the bottom of the Daily Nation, at the top page, talks about cabinet, why it is tough for Ruto to balance while naming his cabinet. The president allies say they need to strike a balance between fulfilling pre-election agreements, ensuring merit prevails, and observing regional and gender equity is among the factors that have delayed the naming of the cabinet. Of course, President William Ruto was to name his cabinet on Sunday, but jetted out for the UK as well as the US. Therefore, the cabinet is still not named. But when he comes back, according to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, he is expected to spearhead the process of eventually naming his cabinet. That is a story by the Daily Nation on page 4. You can get an in-depth of that particular story. Page 3 of the Daily Nation talks about as a profile there of Emmanuel Jambo, who is the photographer now famous, who shoots president, and in this regard being famous for shooting the portrait behind the official portrait of President William Ruto. And on page 3, besides that particular story, is a story there, of course, I know many of you have interacted with, the story there of Vida takes country by storm in the new wave of vernacular music. That is a story that you need to also find out, and in case you've not heard that song, then you can be able to follow and get listening of that particular song, Vida, which has gone viral on all social media platforms. While it is tough for call for Ruto to appoint cabinet, page 4 of the Daily Nation has an in-depth of that. And then and page 5 is Junet writes to Speaker on Azimio lineup. That is matters to do with the control of Parliament, trying to spearhead the organization of the different political factions. And that is what the Daily Nation has in major this morning. Just taking a look at the Standard newspaper as well. The Standard has a top story there of mysterious release of convicted terrorists. An interesting story there to read in the Ministry of Transition Politics. 2 convicted Iranian terrorists were secretly released and spirited away to the airport for onward flight to Tehran. Ahmad Abdullafi Muhammad and Sayyid Mansour Munsavi were serving 15 years in jail for plotting terror attacks in Kenya. In jail for plotting terror attacks in Kenya and possessing 15 kilograms of the military-grade RDX explosives. Who sanctioned their release and what exactly happened? That is a story by the Standard newspaper on page 4, which is a story that you also need to take a look at. And on the left side of the Standard newspaper talks about double blow to members of Parliament over CDF and allowances. The court upheld the decision that CDF is unconstitutional and will not proceed as it has been proceeding, making some different reforms that the members of Parliament feel is not what they needed. And allowances as well, the SRC staying firm that they will not be able to accept any attempt by the members of Parliament to restore their salary increment, as well as also demand their car reimbursement and mortgages. That is a story there by the Standard newspaper on page 6 and 7, as the farmers, and also page 10 talks about farmers being skeptical as cheap fertilizer lands. That is a move by the government now to release the subsidized fertilizer to the Kenyan farmers. That in a statement by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, talking about trying to caution the farmers to ensure that there is cheap productivity, hence ensuring that the production of food goes down, as well the cost of production of food goes down, so that they reduce the burden of Kenyans having to incur so much expenses while purchasing of food. That is a story there by the Standard newspaper. Aro and Kimore case now runs into headwinds. That is page 8 of the Standard, while page 24 talks about Ebola cases in Uganda. That is in regards to the outbreak of the Ebola epidemic in Uganda that has now taken the neighboring countries on storm. And the People Daily has a top story there of why Ruto is seeking debt reliefs. That is a story that we are going to discuss in right a few minutes. The address of the President William Ruto at the UN General Assembly, one of the factors that came out was the President coming out strongly to call on the United Nations member countries to and also the financial institution, the global financial institutions, to provide a debt relief for countries that incurred loan debts during the COVID-19 period. And the People Daily asking why is Ruto seeking debt reliefs, and of course an explanation of that particular story on pages 4 and 5. And page 2 of the People Daily talks about anxiety over delay in payment of CBC classroom contractors. The entire discussion surrounding the CBC, that is the competency-based curriculum, which is now at loggerheads after President William Ruto said that in a short while he will be forming a committee that will now be seeking opinions on the implementation of CBC. Page 4 and 5 of the People Daily talks about the in-depth of Ruto's seek to debt relief as tough economy continues to bite Kenyans. And then Okuri Atani, who is the CS Treasury, now differs with DP Rigathi Gachagua, who claimed that the government has empty coffers. And the attorney there in a statement yesterday fighting back to defend the government and say and give the position of the National Treasury. And that is what the newspapers have written this morning, as well as the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily. And I hope you can be able to grab a copy and get a glimpse of what has been written on in-depth. Remember, our discussion this morning will be talking about the making of the Ruto government. My guest, Levi Munyeri, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Bikwa Shoya, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and Felix Wesonga, who is a political analyst as well as a youth leader, will be right in studio in a short while as they seek to, steer this particular conversation, the making of the Ruto government, the foreign policy. We saw what it spoke about at the United Nations, as well as the scramble to control the parliament, the bone of contention being who has the majority of the members in the National Assembly. The Speaker of the Assembly set to determine that when the Parliament convenes for its first sitting. The naming of the cabinet is still ahead. We'll be talking about that, and also fertilizer subsidy. Is it a long-term solution or a short-term solution? We'll be coming back shortly with my guest, so don't go far away. Stay with us, because in right a few minutes, we'll be back to steer that conversation this morning. Remember, you can engage with us on our social media pages, Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya, and also our SMS number will be scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Then you can leave a message. We can be able also to sample your feedback. But for now, a very short break, but stay with us. I'll be coming back with my guest as we take on the discussion this morning.
Families should be the epitome of love. But in recent times, this seems like a dream, because all we're witnessing is rape cases, high divorce rates, betrayal, and even murder.
So you have to protect her.
Maintaining marriages because
there are also many who are going through issues in their marriages and they can't run to anybody.
The issue of killing, the issue of murder seem to be on the rise.
And that is why we bring you Transforming Families, where we are all about just that, transforming families.
What is to walk with the God? To walk with the God means to devote your life to Him. Praise Jesus. To devote your life to God. To give your life. Tell Jesus, Jesus, I have given your life. I have given my family. I have given you everything that I have, so that I can serve you the way God you want. So to walk with God is to devote your life to Jesus, like David Enoch devoted his life to God. To walk with God is to put your trust in Him. Hallelujah. To put your trust in Him.
Good journalism is bold, in-depth, unique, captivates, reflects, and impacts. To quench your thirst for exceptional stories that are about you, from you, and for you, Kirk TV presents itself as the hub of feature stories. Ranging from health and environment,
either there is extreme drought or extreme floods, and these will affect people.
Religion and politics.
And the man looked at the boy, looked at the mother, and told the boy, going forward, don't wet the bed again.
There come a time when the nation is more important than an individual.
Education and socio-economic issues.
Nasaidika kwa sababu nikishona moja mbili nauza. Napata kitu ya kulisha watoto.
I have met with other types which I have never met before.
To other stories that touch on your day-to-day life.
Ndio iko mingi zaidi. Tafadhali mnasaidia maji ya nyazi.
Tingatinga amekanyanga kila kitu.
Hatujawahi kuona mabadiliko yote kuhusiana na serikali ya kujengea sisi.
Kwanza kitu naweza omba tu nishikiliwe tu pande ya masomo tu ya watoto.
Kirk TV, the hub of feature stories.
Are you looking to grow your business? Kirk TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@kirktv.org or call 011 00 90 647.
I've been together with Kirk TV. We've been working together. It has not been an easy journey, but I thank God because of the team we've been working with, and it has been a very resilient team, very focused, and people who are determined to see to it that Kirk TV stands and continues to thrive. And that team is the one which has caused Kirk TV to be what it is. And I want to thank all of you for this.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner.
Keep it Kirk now and going forward. We have a lot of family programs, and this being a Christian commercial station, we will partner with you as institutions, as individuals, so that we are able to reach out to the entire world. One person said that my parish is the entire world, and I believe that Kirk TV is going globally, and therefore bring your business. We are going to advertise it and also partner with you.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner.
Step number 1 to toothbrushing. Place your toothbrush to your teeth at a 45 degree, like this. Yes, exactly like that. Then you do the up-down stroke on all the teeth. We go up, down, stroke.
Mwanadamu hawezi kufanya, umetoa faraja ambayo mwanadamu hawezi kutoa, haufananishwi na kitu.
Yes. So we have our bunny eyes, whiskers and nose and ears.
The Lord we serve never leaves us, never forsakes us, though we are in storms. The storms might come, the storms will come, but our hope in the Lord, though we may go down, the Lord we serve will never leave us. The Lord speaks every time, whether in the times of storm. The Lord spoke when these people had reached a point of no return.
Choose life that you may love the Lord your God.
If you delight yourself in the Lord, He will make you fruitful in whatever season you are in.
Listen to His voice and hold fast to Him.
That as disciples ourselves, we're being invited to be transformed more fully every single day.
In our walk with God, let us know that we are assured victory in every battle.
For the Lord is your life.
Live a pure life. Are you living a righteous life before the Lord?
It is possible. People are wondering, can you do without corruption? Yes. I can stand and say it is possible to do without corruption.
Don't miss season 2 of the evening epilogue every day at 9:30 p.m. only on Kirk. Families should be the epitome of love. But in recent times, this seems like a dream because all we're witnessing is rape cases, high divorce rates, betrayal, and even murder.
So you have to protect her.
You say maintaining marriages because racism.
There are also many who are going through issues in their marriages and they can't run to anybody.
The issue of killing, the issue of murder seem to be on the rise.
And that is why we bring you Transforming Families, where we are all about just that, transforming families.
What is to walk with the God? To walk with the God means to devote your life to Him. Praise Jesus. To devote your life to God. To give your life. Tell Jesus, Jesus, I have given your life. I have given my family. I have given you everything that I have so that I can serve you.
All right, welcome back again to Kirk in the Morning, and thank you so much for staying with us. Remember, we are streaming live on Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya. You can interact with us and also leave your messages there as we continue this discussion. And this morning, we're talking about the making of the Ruto government, from the foreign policy to the making and the naming of the cabinet. What is next for the president when he returns back in the country? That is our discussion this morning, as well as what is surrounding the induction of members of parliament. The bigger subject there, which has come out this week as they have been on the induction process, is their demand that the SRC reinstate their car reimbursements, as well as the increment of their salaries, and also the reimbursement of their mortgages. That is what they discussed this week, and the bigger questions coming out. Our discussion this morning is all that surrounding the Ruto government now, which has begun its operation officially. And to have that discussion this morning, I have my guest here in studio, and I just begin in the introduction of my near right is Levi Munyeri, is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you, Chris.
And Felix Wesonga on the far right is also our guest this morning, a political analyst, commentator, as well as a youth leader. Welcome to the program this morning, Felix.
Thank you, Chris.
And Biko Shoya is an advocate of the High Court, will be joining us shortly, but all the same, we'll be beginning this conversation. And I just want to begin with you, Levi. What do you make of the Ruto address at the United Nations?
Thank you, Chris. I listened to the address of the UNGA. Mm-hmm. It was a fair address in terms of articulation and in terms of capturing the thematic concerns. I remember he summarized these themes into three. One is conflict, another one is issue of food security, and the third one is COVID-19. Those are things that are contemporary, they affect Africa. They were addressed in quite details. In terms of the effectiveness of the address, that one is yet to be seen and whether it will be acted upon. But I believe it was a good maiden speech at the UN forum, and people are keen to see how Kenya and the new regime will actually represent interest of its country at the forum and how it will lead Africa as a premier country in this region.
Mm-hmm. Good point to note from that. Esonga, from what President William Ruto brought out from in his address at the United Nations, what do you make of the issues that he raised, or rather the speech that he made?
Thank you, Chris, for having me on this show once more.
I listened keenly to the President's address at the United Nations General Assembly, and I think the maiden speech was a good one. He highlighted critical issues which are pertinent to the society right now. I was more interested in his speech towards climate change. He then mentioned security, and then he mentioned agriculture and the food crisis. These are things that are bedeviling us right now, and are things that should be addressed. And you know, Chris, I think Ruto's government should be conscious of the maxim of international relations on foreign policy. States are countries, naturally, they have that what we call in diplomacy state centrism, where the country puts its interests first. And you know, the president is the diplomat number one for the country. And his stance can dictate the direction the country takes, depending on what he advances as an individual. Remember, he's there not in his individual capacity, but as a representative of this country. And I would commend his advisory team on the areas he highlighted. But whether they can be effected, whether they can be realized, is still something that we have to give it time, and we shall realize prospectively. Therefore, my concern generally is the president's foreign diplomacy. And I think his agenda number one should be diplomacy of development, really. And he should not look at diplomacy of politics and maybe prestige. He should engage countries with a view of empowering this country as a president. I think he should keep our traditional allies, and he should also venture into new partnerships with emerging powers like the Asian Tigers and other countries around. Even in the region, we can look at the East African community. We realize that the former president was a champion of diplomacy, and he played a critical role in ensuring that Democratic Republic of Congo joins the EAC. And it is something that the president really should look into and put the prospects of this country and dealings towards the Democratic Republic of Congo. Remember, it's a huge market with a population of around 100 million people. It can be an alternative to what we are facing as challenges with our neighbors. But we are not saying that we should move away from our neighbors. We should be close to our neighbors, but we should also venture into other partnerships.
Just so that I can come back to you, Levi, and also understand whether is begin on a right footing to build up on the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta in regards to diplomacy. Let's just listen in to what President William Ruto had to talk about in regards to calling on the African nations and of course all nations to come together. So and this is a statement that he made. Let's listen in.
Africa places immense value in the international community and the tremendous possibilities it can unlock through inclusive, sustainable, and effective action to transform the lives of our people and establish lasting peace, security, and shared prosperity. This watershed moment is our chance to turn the key and open this door of opportunity. We can make progress in addressing the triple global threats and liberate ourselves from the shame of past failures of multilateralism. At this watershed moment, we must not only choose, but also act decisively to bequeath our children and their children a greener, safer, healthier, and more abundant earth. Let us do it together, inclusively, multilaterally.
Okay, you've had talking about it's now a watershed moment. Is it indeed a watershed moment? Listening to the authority that came out from the statement of William Ruto. Of course, that was part of his closing remarks, if I'm not wrong.
Chris, first it's a watershed moment for him because this is his first address as a president to the UNGA. So that one, the excitement that comes with it, addressing the world at that big stage as a hustler cannot be underscored, or rather it cannot be diminished. However, as my colleague has noted, there's also international politics, just like there's local politics. And I could see an attempt by the president to mingle some aspects of local politics as a country vis-a-vis international politics and international dynamics. The president is actually adopting the diplomacy that had actually started during Kibaki's regime and Uhuru. One of the greatest achievements of the Uhuru's regime was to place Africa Kenya at a very strategic position in Africa, as a leader in Africa. Actually, in terms of international influence, Kenya can only be rivaled by South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. However, it comes at a cost. And just like in local politics, in international politics, you should also be very careful on what you commit to. He substantially discussed the issue of climate change. Climate change is a very contentious issue at the world arena because of the consequences and effects that it has to almost every aspect of the economy, from fossil fuels to agriculture to development, and it's a very costly affair. The president should not be very keen to commit to, global warming reductions and such policies, because the moment you commit with them, it is expected that the way you deal with trade, the way you produce your energy, the way you import should be in tandem with that foreign policy pronouncement on climate change. So there are countries in Africa that have succeeded in taking a principle and a perspective of neutrality in some of these international affairs. One thing I noted is that the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is not in the UNGA. In his wisdom or lack of, he said South Africa has better or has more pressing issues that it's tackling now than going to address the UNGA. And that is strategic. You don't need to pronounce yourself or be quick to make a pronouncement and commit yourself to certain issues which can later on be used to cage you to trade in a certain way or to run your country in a certain way. So I'd say, of course, there's some excitement at the beginning. The president wants to set his foot, wants to show the world that there is an intelligent and very lucid president in Africa now. But as time goes, I believe his advisors should be more keen, should ask him to go slow on some issues, not to commit on some issues under the principle of neutrality in international law, that there are some things you don't need to make a decision, you rather remain neutral, so that later on when a country adopts a certain policy or trades in a certain way, then nobody can say you're actually going against your commitments under international law. Yes.
Songa, you've heard what he's talking about, for the president to be cautious enough in committing to some foreign policies and also some foreign affairs issues that affect the world at large. From what he submitted, there are some things that he put at the table of the globe, of the world countries. Do you think, or do you feel the issues that he raised in regards to food security, the security of the continent, as well as the security of each country in the world, do you feel that he began on the right footing, as Levy here talks about being cautious of committing to some foreign policies that at the end of the day might as well affect how your country operates?
Well, I listened keenly to the President's address at the United Nations General Assembly, and I think the President is one very ambitious man. But I would like to agree with my friend here. I think there is this policy in international relations, if I'm not wrong, the wait and see policy. There are things that you should not advance with so much speed before consulting. Like, for instance, we have the security issue in the Horn of Africa. We have a lot of issues bedeviling our security as people in sub-Saharan Africa. If I may just highlight but a few, we already have the problem of security arising from sharing of resources, the Nile Basin. you realize that Egypt and Ethiopia are at loggerheads because of the Nile waters. You realize that when you go to a country like Somalia, we have a problem with them with the maritime issues. You realize that even right now as we speak, our soldiers are in Congo for maintaining peace there. And you realize we have a lot in the region, Migingo, we have a lot. But just to talk of a few that are affecting the globe, because the president positioned himself there as a leader of other African countries towards the Security Council. And realize we have something like the Russian-Ukraine crisis. I think the president should not be quick to pick a side, because there shall be new alignments, new alliances going forward from this particular conflict. It is not something that you just look at it at the face value. And I think the president should adopt the wait and see policy, because we might still benefit from either side. And I think South Africa is right. There are some things that seem not to be wise, but if you look at them prospectively, they are very wise. There are areas in which Russia can help us. You can see, like the other day, the president was trying to be to advance the fertilizer issue, and you realize a country like Morocco is the largest producer of phosphorus in Africa as we speak. And realize that the president moved with so much speed, and I believe he did not consult very well to do away with the recognition of Sahrawi. And you realize that other African countries were very much not at peace with what the president had done, because we are people who have a history of being colonized. And you realize that really, from my own perspective and not that of the government, I feel Morocco is a colonizing state. And if we can support its activities, and I don't think will be good. It will be fair on our side. I think the president, as much as we advance our own interests, state-centrism, the president should also put into consideration that there are benefits that we can get, like from a country like Sahrawi, which is recognized, I think, by 41 states. We are a leader at the UN Security Council, and I think we should approach this with, we should give this a multiple approach in a way that we don't just go for one input and do away with the other one. I think the president should go slow. He should not be very fast on how he is dealing with international relations. They can be very much complex at times. And also just to weigh in on climate change. This is my area of specificity. And I think the president, as much as we are calling for funding, we are showing goodwill towards climate change. Also back here in the country, the president should really look at climate change from our very own local arena. You realize that we have state departments that really inform the decisions that we take on climate change, like the Kenya Meteorological Department. But this is one department that is in a very sorry state as we speak. It's a department that has been receiving dwindling resources from time immemorial since 2016. The budget is going down, and realize that the climate change is an issue that is now being very critical as we speak. But the budget of the Kenya Met Department is going down. And you realize that if we cannot empower that which informs our decisions, like these are the people who collect data, process, and tell us how the drought is progressing in asal areas elsewhere. If the government is not very deliberate on empowering these departments, then I think this is all just but popularly now hot air, as people say it.
Talking about you talked about what the DP, rather the president did in regards to prosecuting the Kenyan case at the global stage. And of course, making his case known to the world. From what he also talked about after his swearing in, he praised President Uhuru Kenyatta for a good agenda on the foreign policy and making the right decisions when it comes to the foreign policy as well. Also, he was in his capacity speaking. He also mentioned about confidently talked about Kenya being a member of the United Nations Security Council, which is a position that former President Uhuru Kenyatta lobbied, and Kenya was able to get that position. If you look at the issues that he prosecuted at the global stage and the problems that we are facing back at home, in comparison with the two, do you feel that that was the right move and he prosecuted the case in the right way that will help him deal with the internal problems?
A nation that seeks to progress in economy in this age of globalization has to balance local policies vis-a-vis foreign and international politics. And Kenya over the last 15 years has done quite well, and you should look at it from a perspective. One of the most ambitious foreign policy projects by Kenya was what we call the shuttle diplomacy by Kalonzo. So Kenya had to get into the global politics with quite some force because of the ICC cases that were facing Ruto and Uhuru. And they wanted some recognition of Kenya and its leadership at the global stage. And also they actually ventured into some serious attacks on the legitimacy and functionality of the International Criminal Court. So that's how it began, in quite a circumstance that is more or less a matter of necessity, but it has now grown into a strength of a country. And as Felix as well noted, we are in a globally volatile area called the Horn of Africa, with a lot of conflicts. I think in the whole world, the Horn of Africa is actually a leader in conflict and instability, and we are some island of peace in such a region. So we cannot escape some issues at the global stage, including, talking about funding. We are actually one of the few countries in the world which are facing acute food shortage. So we ourselves are into that problem. And therefore, such issues that affect the country directly, like food security, we have to tackle them at the global stage, not because we're engaging in some politics or diplomacy, but rather because these are things that affect our country. So to that extent, touching on matters that directly affect the lives of Kenyans, that one we have no choice, because what the globe decides is what will shape our policies at home, and any assistance that comes from there is actually needed on the ground. But as a nation, we should remember, and I think it's a problem with Kenyans, that we are a developing country, what used to be called third world countries. How much we've developed compared to our neighbors. At the global stage, we are still a developing country. We should not bite more than we can chew. Let us engage in global politics sparingly. And my colleague has mentioned is actually an expert in climate change. One of the hallmarks of climate change, fighting and combating the same, is that the concept of climate change is global. You'll be shocked that only 2 countries contribute more than 70% of carbon emissions that result to global warming. That's China and the US. And of course, whatever is produced in China affects what happens in Kenya. So it has been really politicized for one reason, that the issue of combating global warming and climate change is something that is a heavy investment. And countries that contribute more carbon emissions should actually contribute more towards combating global warming. So as a country like Kenya, in terms of, trying to advocate for fighting of global warming, that is good. But it's not something that we can immerse ourselves deeply, because it affects us. But as a country and our economic status in the world, we don't have the powers to, shape policy with that robustness like a country like China. So it's a question of precaution, knowing what affects you and what does not. The wait and see policy, as my colleague has referred, some neutrality on some issues, and essentially knowing your position on the globe. You are a force in Africa, but you still have serious challenges at home that you do not have the luxury to bounce into international politics and forget that your country is still struggling to develop. Any president should take note of that.
Okay, and talking about the real problem, and the big problem for us is the economy, and is what the president prosecuted at the global stage and the United Nations address on the economy, as well as also trying to popularize his model of reviving the Kenyan economy. But that we'll be talking about in a short while. But we take a very short break. Stay with us. I'll be right back in a short while to continue the discussion on the making of the Ruto government. Don't go far away.
Good journalism is bold, in-depth, unique, captivates, reflects, and impacts. To quench your thirst for exceptional stories that are about you, from you, and for you, Kirk TV presents itself as the hub of feature stories. Ranging from health and environment,
either there is extreme drought or extreme floods, and these will affect people.
Religion and politics.
And the man looked at the boy, looked at the mother, and told the boy, going forward, don't wet the bed again.
There come a time when the nation is more important than an individual.
Education and socio-economic issues.
Nasaidika kwa sababu nikishona moja mbili nauza, napata kitu ya kulisha watoto.
I have met with other tribes which I have never met before.
To other stories that touch on your day-to-day life.
Njaa ndio iko mingi zaidi. Tafadhali mnasaidia maji ya nyazi.
Tinga amekanyanga kila kitu.
Hatujawahi kuona mabadiliko yote kuhusiana na serikali ya kujengea sisi.
Kwanza kitu naweza omba tu nishikiliwe tu pande ya masomo tu ya watoto.
Kirk TV, the hub of feature stories.
Toothbrushing. Place your toothbrush to your teeth at a 45 degree, like this. Yes, exactly like that. Then you do the up-down stroke on all the teeth. We go. Up-down stroke.
Mwanadamu hawezi kufanya. Umetoa faraja ambayo mwanadamu hawezi kutoa. Haufananishwi na kitu.
Yes. So we have our bunny eyes, whiskers and nose and ears.
Are you looking for a university that matches your drive and ambition? Choose ZTech University. We offer market-driven programs ranging from master's, bachelor's, diploma and certificate levels in the schools of ICT, Media and Engineering, Education, Arts and Social Sciences, and the School of Business and Economics. Enroll today for September 2022 intake and enjoy a vibrant student experience, ultra-modern and well-equipped facilities, experienced faculty, and a place to pursue your dreams and ultimately change the world. ZTech University. Invent your future.
Are you looking to grow your business? Kirk TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@kirktv.org or call 011 00 90647.
Choose life that you may love the Lord your God.
If you delight yourself in the Lord, He will make you fruitful in whatever season you are in.
Listen to His voice and hold fast to Him.
That as disciples ourselves, we're being invited to be transformed more fully every single day.
In our walk with God, let us know that we are assured victory in every battle.
For the Lord is your life.
Live a pure life. Are you living a righteous life before the Lord? It is possible. People are wondering, can you do without corruption? Yes. I can stand and say it is possible to do without corruption.
Don't miss season 2 of the evening epilogue every day at 9:30 p.m. only on Kirk TV.
we serve never leaves us, never forsakes us, though we are in storms. The storms might come, the storms will come, but our hope in the Lord, though we may go down, the Lord we serve will never leave us. The Lord speaks every time, whether in the times of storm. The Lord spoke when these people had reached a point of no return.
My name is Moaz Jamal. I'm the Managing Director of Associated Motors Limited. Associated Motors introduced the Isuzu brand of commercial vehicles into Kenya a little over 55 years ago. We've been with Family Bank a little over a year now. We've had a very good experience. There's always interaction between ourselves and the team at Family Bank. They've worked with us very much as part of the AM family, as a partner. They've always wanted to understand our business. In many ways, the name of the bank reflects what they do.
Our customers are family, and we want you to know that you can always bank on family.
I've been together with Kirk TV. We've been working together. It has not been an easy journey, but I thank God because of the team we've been working with, and it has been a very resilient team, very focused, and people who are determined to see to it that Kirk TV stands and continues to thrive. And that team is the one which has caused Kirk TV to be what it is. And I want to thank all of you for this.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner.
Keep it Kirk now and going forward. We have a lot of family programs, and this being a Christian commercial station, we will partner with you as institutions, as individuals, so that we are able to reach out to the entire world. One person said that my parish is the entire world, and I believe that Kirk TV is going globally, and therefore bring your business. We are going to advertise it and also partner with you.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. The Presbyterian Teachers College Rubate is now offering training and upgrading of P1 and ECDE certificates to diploma, and hereby invites all applicants for the September 2022 intake in the following teacher education programs: Diploma in Early Childhood Teacher Education, DECTE, required grade is discipline in KCSE. Upgrade of P1 certificate to diploma, upgrade of early childhood teacher education ECDE to diploma. The reporting dates are as from 12th September to 12th October 2022, with the option of part-time classes available. For more information, please contact the principal through 0701 508 503 or their office line on 0720 312 021 and 0711 185 283.
All right, welcome back again. In case you're joining us, this is Kirk in the morning. As we continue with the discussion, we've been talking about the making of the Ruto government and focusing on the foreign policy And now I just want us to, before we get back into our discussion, and welcome Bikwa Show has joined us. Welcome to the program as we also continue with our discussion this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, before we get back to our discussion, let's listen in to what the President William Ruto had to say in regards to the economic situation in the country, as well as calling out on the Global Monetary Organization for relief on the debts.
I call upon global financial institutions and the international community to take urgent measures and release all existing financial instruments to provide much-needed additional liquidity and secure better fiscal space for developing countries like Kenya to enhance social investment, support climate change adaptation and mitigation, and address security needs and resolve development financing challenges. On behalf of Kenya, therefore, I join other leaders in calling upon the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and other multilateral lenders to extend pandemic-related debt relief to the worst-hit countries, especially those affected by the devastating combination of conflict, climate change.
Right, and just coming to you, Wesonga, just so quickly, what do you make of that call to the global lenders by the president?
Thank you, Chris. I think the president and generally the government of Kenya should move away from the policy, foreign policy of aid to that of trade. The government should also keep its traditional allies and look into new partnerships with emerging powers. You remember when President Kibaki came into power, he had the Look East narrative, basically China. It gave Kenya the leverage to bargain for more affordable loans from the West and even from China. And I think it is time now for Kenya to reevaluate its relationship with China. China has been a commendable partner in development, but we need to ascertain whether this is mutually beneficial rather than just being an avenue for getting loans from China. The government should should direct China or should negotiate with China to invest in the country, more so in hustler-based enterprises. And by saying hustler-based enterprises, I simply mean enterprises that are labor-intensive, ones which can tap into the local population of youth who are, who of course can provide this labor. And by so doing, bring some processing industries and other manufacturing industries in Kenya from, let's say, the Chinese market. The country will have much to export, of course, and less dependency on foreign currency. That way, we shall have more. To pay for our debts, and we shall also have low dependency on the dollar, and that way the country shall tame some of the challenges we are facing as a result of the weakening shilling. And the government, I think, from what the president talked about at the United Nations General Assembly, the president is seeking funding from the West. I can clearly, let me say, speculate for now. President William Ruto will be more inclined to the West. And you can see from his speech, he's trying to entice our traditional partners and reinvigorate what we used to be in the past before the Kibaki regime, which was further strengthened by Uhuru Kenyatta. I think it's not a bad thing, and I encourage that the president goes for multiple sources of funding, but more so he cuts more on borrowing and renegotiate our debt with countries that have been loaning us in the last 10 years.
Rico, what do you make of, he's talked about the strategy that President William Ruto is using, but you've heard him calling out on the international money lenders that, please, it's like he's saying, please do this for us, and he's looking at the situation back at home and a country that is inheriting from former president and looking at what is ahead, and now he is forced to at least make that call.
Chris, one thing that we have to appreciate is, as a country, we have to appreciate the situation that we are in as a country. We are not doing quite well financially, the president, of course, would want to go all out to ensure that then in wanting to fulfill whatever promises that he gave to Kenyans, whether it is in his manifesto or whatever his government has promised Kenyans, that he fulfills. And even as he so does, it all revolves around money. Whether the president is going to adopt the strategy of maintaining the traditional partners insofar as the bilateral agreements that were there between Kenya as a country and other countries that are doing better insofar as finances are concerned, or whether they would want to go to the IMF and to the World Bank and to all these other international money lenders. It all boils down to one thing, that as a country we need money, and we need diversification of our sources of the money. What would be most important to me is what would be the terms and conditions for our acquisition of the monies from whichever the source. Because remember, no one is going to give you monies without expecting a benefit from it. And whether it is a grant where you as a country will not ordinarily be expected to pay back, or whether it is a loan, they all come with their own implications. All these, whether we are angling towards the west or whether we are angling towards the east, it all comes with repercussions. They all come with conditions, right? So the only thing that we then need to do is to understand that where do we find ourselves as a country insofar as our debts are concerned. Do we still have the financial muscles? Do we still have the capacity to service the debt that we have as a country, while at the same time trying to get more funds to try and alleviate ourselves from the situation that we find ourselves in. So it will be a delicate balance that then the president and his team will have to look at, so that we don't find ourselves in more debt. You remember at the tail end of the parliament that has just exited, there was continued call for increasing the ceiling. The debt ceiling, that as a country, how far can we stretch it? Because people are saying that our debts are now becoming unmanageable. But then Treasury, the Treasury came in and said that hey, we still can, we still can stretch it. So we have to interrogate and see, as a country, what are the debts that we have? Is it something that we need to go in for more debts? Do we need first to manage these ones, or do we need to renegotiate the debts that we have, even as we look for further funding? So I think it's something that as a country we have to look at very keenly. We have to interrogate it very objectively to then ask ourselves: do we need further debts? Do we need further funding? And for the monies that are coming in, and this is very critical. What are we borrowing these monies for? Like my brother said, are we borrowing these monies to develop more roads? Are we borrowing these monies for, or are we asking for these funds to put in, hard infrastructure like, railway, transport, roads and all that? Or are we borrowing these monies to inject it to the hustler, to the hustler, let me call it, to the hustler nation, to the mamambogas, to the borders, and what will be the effect of that? Right, so it's a whole cocktail of considerations that the country has, that the let me call it, the Kenya Kwanza administration has to consider, even as it goes out to look for funds.
Just before I come to you, Levi, there's something that the president talked about, trying to incorporate the hustler the hustler statement to the global stage, and trying, to talk about how he is structuring the economy so that Kenyans can be able to benefit. But this is what the president said while at the United Nations General Assembly in regards to the hustling nation.
In many respects, the COVID-19 pandemic stripped us of many illusions and exposed stark justice and solidarity deficits in the face of existential crisis. Building back better from the bottom. Building back better from the bottom upwards is essentially about including the marginalized to working majority in the economic mainstream. The bottom millions relentlessly wage their daily battle for survival in a crowded arena characterized by scarcity of opportunity and generally precarious existence. The ingenuity, optimism, resilience, and energy in this ever-bustling bottom is sometimes called hustling. Invisibly to policymakers and beyond the reach of many public services, these hustlers take nothing for granted, surviving overwhelming odds and frequently succeeding greatly.
Heavy. You can listen in to the president. What do you make of that statement?
Interesting. Actually, I remember getting really amused while listening to that speech because of the invocation of the word hustler. Hustler is essentially a Kenyan slang for someone who is really, working and running around to earn a living. In other countries or in the English dictionary, hustler has different meaning. Hustler, actually in the American context, which I know because I've stayed there briefly, Hustler, there's a magazine called Hustler Magazine, which is actually a pornographic magazine. So I was really amused on how someone sitting in a cafe in New York could understand the president. But it's very important to put this matter in this perspective. It's no doubt that the speech by the president was heavily influenced by his speechwriters and his foreign policy advisors. Even the way he delivered it, you could see it is not his traditional way of delivering speeches. First, he's talked about building back better. Building back better, if you can remember, was the presidential slogan for Joe Biden when he was coming in to oust Donald Trump, who was going under the slogan of America, MAGA. That is Make America Great Again. So I also found it very curious that a president could actually speak of it as his own invention. I think that was some hiccup by whoever was assisting to write the speech, because ordinarily you don't expect a Kenyan president to invoke in his speech a slogan by an American president. It actually borders what we can call plagiarism, so to speak. As my colleague Felix has said, President Ruto is very ambitious, even in his nature of politics. What is, or I'm making out of that speech is that he imagines, of course, he has conquered Kenya. He has achieved the presidency of Kenya, which is prestigious. He'll also want to achieve that one day. Now his ambition has actually expanded to the international level, where he's now, as Kenya, of course, expand its influence in the international arena, but as William Samoei Ruto, to actually expand his influence and his presence at the international arena. And I think what he was trying to do from a perspective of oratory and speech writing was to try to introduce the word hustler at the global arena. The issue of bottom up, I've heard a few weeks ago actually President Biden referring to trickle down, and it's a question again of American partisan politics and policies, because Republicans believe in trickle down, that you pump money in corporations and then the corporations through employment can actually trickle that money to the ground. That's the local American. So it was a good attempt, not very wise and with a few flaws. But the bottom line is that I'll call them sideshows. a little bit oratory, flowery language. And I think as the president gets deeper, delves deeper into issues of international politics, he'll shed off some of these sideshows and now focus on the issues as they are.
Asonga, you were smiling while talking about sideshows. I don't know if you picked some sideshows as well.
Well, I think the president was trying to make the best out of that, out of that stage, and also just considering that he was the newest guy in the room, he was supposed to show his presence really. And in Africa, for the first time, though I won't take credit from President Uhuru Kenyatta, he has been a good diplomat. Everybody can agree on that. And he's also a good orator. But we also acknowledge that President William Ruto is a very sharp guy and eloquent. But I think from the speech writing team, they did way. it was too flowery, as my colleague has said. He should have focused more on what is intricate with our needs here in Kenya. But for a start, I don't think he's badly off. With the time, he'll be okay. With the time, he'll be okay. And I still believe he'll be our ambassador as Africans to the United Nations. You realize that many African countries, if we may start with our neighbors, and I won't mention them for for many reasons, I won't mention it. But you realize that very few African countries have leaders who can actually stand up and speak and convince somebody. And I think William Ruto is one of them. Uhuru Kenyatta has been one of them. And I realize even at the United Nations Security Council, these Western countries and other countries around the world, they are very much comfortable with President Uhuru Kenyatta. He's one guy, when he sits somewhere on a stage and starts addressing issues, you really admire his oratory skills and how he moves around with diplomacy. And I think President William Ruto would like to stretch that and also make it even better. But I think his team should go slow, should consult widely, and it'll be better with time.
I think if I can just weigh in on that one before probably we move to our next topic. Just like my colleague Levia said, the importation of I think President Ruto still feels the need to appease the people that put him to where he is. And so by bringing the hustler nation to the international stage, he wants to bring in this notion that he still thinks about the hustler nation. But then, just like both my colleagues have said, I mean, here we are done with local politics. We've now gone international. You must now speak as a president. You must speak a language that the people that you wish to draw closer to you, or the people that you wish to, at that particular stage, you need to have a particular language that, that resonates with the people at that stage. So we are done with local politics. It is good that the hustler narrative ultimately carried the day. But then here we are now, it's a totally different ball game altogether. So he needs to, with his team, of course, because I'm very sure. Probably they weren't even prepared with that speech. I'm very sure that speech was written either hours or not even either. It was written hours to its delivery. So, and they tried as much as possible to capture either the international mood as they found themselves in, and also try and incorporate some of the things that they had in their manifestos and whatever it is that they had promised the people down here. So, like my colleagues have said, it is. We are giving him time. It is his first international outing. It is his first major stage that he's had to address in his position, in his capacity as the President of the Republic of Kenya. And we are hoping that with time they are going to just polish, the rough edges, and and package our president better than what we saw at the United Nations General Assembly.
And just on that note is where we now switch gears from what he did at the international stage and come back home. Of course, next week he's expected to be back in the country, and he comes back home to face now the elephants in the room. That is the the making of his government in regards to naming of the cabinet, as well as also putting some policies that will enable him to achieve the agenda that he set out before being elected as president. We've seen the Public Service Commission already calling out for the application of the permanent secretary positions, and that is a show that the president is now geared towards naming his cabinet. Just want to begin with you, Levi. The president comes back home to face yet another bigger challenge of naming a cabinet, a balance between loyalty, rewarding loyalty, and the merit and the performance of the different ministries, and also as well as putting his government into order. He comes back home with zero speculation of who is to be in a certain ministry. What do you make of the situation when he comes back home, owing to the fact that he has next week to name his cabinet, and the challenge that he faces in forming a 22 cabinet ministers?
Chris, it does not escape my attention that the cabinet announcement has actually delayed. And we know it has delayed because of the many promises that were made during campaigns, which is normal of our politics. So many people who have interest in such positions. So the president at this juncture has now to look more than politics. Cabinet is a very important player in the Kenyan economy. You need to get a cabinet that is sober, a cabinet that is competent, because it's the driver of the executive, which has been mandated by the Constitution to steer economic development. The president, one of his standing out promises was a half women cabinet. That's a very progressive thing. I really expect that he'll deliver that promise. The constitutional imperative is that a cabinet should also reflect the dynamic of Kenya and be a face of Kenya. We expect that we'll have a cabinet that is balanced in terms of regions. That's an important aspect. Politics has to come in, but we expect that politics will not affect the merits of that cabinet, so that we get a cabinet that can serve our country well, of competent people. There's an aspect of integrity that should actually be included. We don't expect to hear names that have cases in court, people of questionable integrity making their way into that lucrative position. It is a task. It is time to make decisions. It's actually the biggest task yet to be seen from him. And I believe it will actually define his presidency in terms of a person who can actually, of course, promise and deliver, but most important, put the interest of the nation first, beyond those of people who assisted him to campaign, who sponsored him, and the rest. So it's definitely something we are waiting to see. And after seeing it, will be very critical. As myself, that will be the commencement of my serious critique of this government. We don't want to see what we've been seeing before. It should not be business as usual. The president should stamp his foot and confirm to Kenyans that is assembling a team that is capable, competent to serve this country and steer economic development.
Kasonga, he's talked about he's waiting to see what happens when the president now comes back to name his cabinet. But previously, the people in his camp blamed President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, with gambling with different ministries. They actually cited some critical ministries that they said former president gambled with them. I just see you as my loyalist, then I put you in that particular ministry. Now the president comes back home to face the same challenge: loyalty versus merit. What do you make of his eventual naming of the cabinet?
Chris, before I give my perspective on this, it's important to note that I'm also a politician, and I'm a supporter of this government. But that doesn't keep me away from being critical of it. Chris, you realize that government, just like any other installation, and from Political Science 001, you'll realize that politics is distribution of resources and status And you realize that a politician, just like any other leader in any other organization, will want to work with people who are loyal to him, will want to work with people who believe in his manifesto, will want to work with people who believe in his ideologies. It will be very difficult for President William Ruto to pick somebody from the Azimio wing, however competent he is, to come and lead his cabinet. You realize that even at the height of the campaigns of Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, I would largely say that Azimio did not have that manifesto that can be seen. Their manifesto was majorly based on the shortcomings of Kenya Kwanza. We would have heard their politicians say, oh, you know, huyu ni mwizi, this one is a, Ruto is a thief, Mudavadi is a coward, Kalonzo, I don't know, is a watermelon. You realize that they built their campaign strategy on the shortcomings of Kenya Kwanza. So you don't expect Kenya Kwanza to bring people into their government who might be saboteurs. They might advance, they might in fact advance the same to bring down his government, so that in 2027, of course, they'll have a bigger thing to talk about his shortcomings. And I also believe the president will not run short of competency in his camp. He will get, but I would advise on a very sober step that the president considers regional balance, because everybody who will be in his cabinet is not there in their individual capacity. He is there as a representative also of his people. Whatever his backyard yearns to have, he can present it easily. Remember, cabinet secretary can easily access the president and the team. So if you only pick from a certain region, that's what brings in things calls like those of secession. What we don't want to see that. So the president will try at his best to make sure that it is regionally balanced, but don't expect that even from the regionally balanced cabinet, that the person who will be picked from Kisumu is somebody in Azimio. If you scrutinize very well, you realize this person is more loyal to President William Ruto than even to Raila Amolo Odinga. We have seen it in the past. We have seen somebody like C.S. Rotich. You know, when you say C.S. Rotich, the name beacons the backyard of William Ruto, but you realize that C.S. Rotich is a great buddy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. So don't expect something very different and very far from what is obvious, because expecting others actually is expecting too much. So I expect that the president shall make good decisions towards the appointment of the cabinet, but I also hope that he won't pick already elected politicians, because it's expensive, and these are people who have been entrusted with the higher calling of their constituents to lead them. So whenever they get to the stage, the national stage, and again they abandon what they have been seeking for the last 2-3 years, and they want to lead in another capacity, actually it's betrayal somehow, and it's conmanship to another extent. So I believe I believe the president will not pick from senators and MPs, his cabinet. He'll simply pick from technocrats, and personally I would like to join the government as a technocrat. And well, I think the president should be more objective when picking the cabinet on my own.
He's talking about, the president to provide the politicians, especially the senators, members of parliament in his cabinet. But some of his front runners in the cabinet, some of them are even senators. I will not mention names because that will be speculation. But there is reports coming in, and some of them are senators and some of them are members of parliament. In that regard, what do you make of his decision now? He faces a bigger decision, appointing a politician as in the cabinet. Should they resign and then join the cabinet, or should the president now focus, as he said, on the technocrat?
Chris, Kenya is not short of people who are qualified to hold the position of cabinet secretary. There are several of them. We have even as a country exported human resource that is very qualified, that has made very, very good changes in other jurisdictions. It's only that we don't appreciate them in the country. There is this fallacy that it is only politicians who can lead this country, and it's something that we've been running with as a country for a very long time. It's high time that we and that was the philosophy behind having politicians not being ministers, as they were called initially, because we needed people who had the technical know-how to run the various ministries that we have as a country. initially you would find that someone who does not have any background in a particular field being nominated and or appointed to head a particular ministry. You would find an engineer being placed to be, you know, a minister in charge of health. And then, you know, one would ask what was the rationale behind it. But then, as my colleague has said, we need people who are well versed with the institutions that we are charging them to lead. There was a rumor that was doing rounds during the elections time that in fact the respective camps, that is Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, had already selected their cabinet secretaries. In fact, people were telling, in fact, the word on the streets was, kazi as in serikali tayari ishapangwa. Unaona? So it would appear like even as they were doing campaigns, they were also trying to look at, is Wesonga the one that is going to be the one in charge of the Ministry of Education? Will Levy be the one to be in charge of the Ministry of Constitutional and, you know, and Legal Affairs and so on and so forth? So there were prospective members that had been nominated even before the respective camps took government to lead particular institutions or particular ministries. And of course, after Kenya Kwanza won the elections, they have to relook at the lineup that probably they had, because even as at that time we had very obvious choices, like people were saying Ababu Namwamba definitely will take, you know, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You know, Chirchir will become the, you know, either State House controller or, you know, head of whatever it is at State House. So there are those obvious names. But then if now, just to answer your question, if we have a member of parliament or someone who's been elected as a member of parliament of either parliament, and this person is so qualified to lead a particular ministry, the question then would be, do we want to take Kenyans back to a by-election because this is the most qualified person to lead that particular institution or that particular ministry, or can we get any other person that is, you know, that is qualified, so that then we can so that then we can have them lead that particular ministry without really destabilizing, you know, the country? Because we've been campaigning for the last 4 years. We intensified it, of course, at the very tail end of the Uhuru Kenyatta 5-year term. But then, do we really want to go back to so many by-elections? Because we already have a by-election coming in is it Bungoma, because of Moses Wetangula and so on and so forth. Do we need to have several other by-elections, or do we need now then to focus on a development agenda moving forward? My take is, we are not short of professionals. As we are seated in this room, you are a professional in your own way. You can be given a ministry to run. My good friend here has said that he would like to advise this government on 1 or 2 issues. Levy here has said that he would one day wish to be a president. So he already has a presidential mentality. If he was given a ministry to run right now, I'm very sure he's very competent to run that ministry. You as truly here can, if I was to be given the ministry of the Ministry of Constitutional and Legal Affairs, I'm very sure I'm competent and I'm going to do a splendid job. My closing remark is this: we have Kenyans who are very competent. We don't need to recycle. We don't need to recycle, you know, the common faces who do not even have a track record. We can't keep on doing the same things expecting a different result. Let us bring in different faces. And what I would like to urge the president is that ensure that as much as possible have youths in your team. We have the benefit of coming in with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of vigor, with a lot of hope. You know, the hope of this country is not carried by people who are in their 70s and people who are in their 80s. The hope is carried by the youths, like we are seated in this room. So ensure that much as you want to bring in, you want to strike the gender balance, also ensure that you bring in your cabinet as many youths as possible, whether it will be in the position of cabinet secretaries, or whether it will be in the position of I saw the other day, was it yesterday? The debate around the cabinet assistant secretaries is still ongoing until right now. So ensure that you have as many youth as possible, so that we try and see, yes, that balance and what the youth can do, and you'll be shocked that youth can do very amazing job when they're given. Yes.
And if I may just critique something that my colleague has just said, you realize that senior citizens of this country are the architects behind the idea of youth leadership, I don't know, there is this thing called National Youth Council or something. You realize that in a way, they are confining us into a certain sphere that a young person can only think or resonate around young people. And I think it is also wrong, even though personally I'm referred to as a youth leader, but I think it's not the right term. I'm just a leader who is youthful. And by being young, I don't think that limits me to think only about young people. I can as well know what is good for my grandmother. I can as well know what is good for my father, for my parents. And I think if we give it that perspective, we shall have more youth in the government than if we say we categorize youth just as a special group, and realize that even the government allocation of youth to the ministries, you realize that they have placed youth in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, or what is it? How is sports related to youth? You realize that they have really trivialized this idea of the youthful population, and we are the majority. It's a fact. So I don't really. I think the president should set a new precedence by bringing into the cabinet more youthful people, because the future really lies with the youth, not the old generation. These guys are facing out, And I would also like to go deeper beyond even just appointment of the cabinet, the senior, now the 22 cabinet secretaries. You realize that once these people are appointed, they are the ones who bring other people into the public service. But for heaven's sake, even though we know these people will pick their own people, let them not be blackmailed into picking people as much as you want to pick your relatives or friends. Please, kindly, do not pick people who cannot differentiate their right from their left, surely. Even if you must pick your relative, pick somebody who is qualified. It will be more honorable to bring in somebody. We know you have expectations, and most of these cabinet secretaries, most of them are politicians, to say the truth, and there are people who are ambitious. Then, lastly, I would also like to point out, in the government that has just exited, or the government that is exiting, we have cabinet secretaries who have performed outstandingly well. And we can't take that from them. We give credit where it's due. People like Matiang'i, Magoha, they have done well. But also, as much as we like their work, keeping such people into the system for a very long time, this is what births the idea of deep state. Somebody sits in a ministry for a very long time and starts to imagine that he knows exactly the intricacies within the ministry and he can manipulate the government. They now start calling themselves deep state. So it is also healthy, as much as we might want to retain some members of the cabinet secretary, they should go home at least for 2 years, then come back at least later, at least to break that cycle. Yeah.
You talked about something, I don't know what they mean when they say what an old man can see while seated, a young person cannot see even on top of a tree. Levi, as we conclude, what would be your final remarks? So many issues we can talk about in regards to the formation and the making of the government in the next few weeks, but the big issue is the naming of the cabinet, the creation of positions to fill in the promises in the campaigns. What would be your final remarks even as we conclude?
Chris, as a country, are led by a document, a charter called our constitution, which we inaugurated as ourselves as a sovereign people. That is our ultimate guide for citizens and for political leaders, elected or unelected. What we expect from Ruto cradles from the swearing-in ceremony, when he held the constitution and said he'll guide this country as per the constitution. The constitution has dictates on cabinet appointments and the rest. Regional balance is 1, meritocracy is 2, and being a politician, you expect serious consideration on what is good for Mwananchi. So it's not that he's going to declare and pronounce a cabinet without a guide. he has a guide called the Constitution, and that's the ultimate document that he should refer to. We as Kenyans have very high expectations. Few people will be disgruntled, but what is good for the bigger country is good for all of us. So I wish him the best. Let him come out with a historic list that will be referred years later, and say that this is the list that actually fished out Kenyans from some level of economic hopelessness. So let's wait and see. One thing that I must say, I'm convicted that to be an elected MCA is a higher calling than to be a cabinet secretary. It will be the beginning of political conmanship for someone to resign from an elected seat where people elected and bestowed your responsibility for purposes of the trappings of power that come from being a cabinet secretary. We are not shy of, we don't have a shortage of people who can work. There is no single seat that only one person is qualified. If you're elected by the people, stick to your lane, save the country the cost of running a by-election. Let another person take a cabinet secretary and move this country from serving the executive as you serve in the legislature.
I think that is a good point to also wind up this particular discussion this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time for us to have this discussion. Biko Shoya is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Levi Monyeri is also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and thank you for making time for this discussion this morning. Felix Osonga is a political analyst and commentator. I don't know if I will put the word youth leader because you raised that concerning girls. We just say a youthful leader. And that is where we end up this particular discussion this morning. Thank you so much for making time to come here, and also you, the viewer, for making time to be able to catch up with this discussion. And remember, next week on Friday, we'll also be having the same discussion, but different matters will be coming up, especially the naming of the cabinet. We conclude this particular political discussion, but when we return back, Entertainment Friday will be right back. I'm told that musician Flozy TK is already in our premises. We'll be coming back shortly, even as Kirk in the Morning continue. Don't go far away. We take a very short break and then we'll be right back.
I've been together with Kirk TV. We've been working together. It has not been an easy journey, but I thank God because of the team we've been working with, and it has been a very resilient team, very focused, and people who are determined to see to it that Kirk TV stands and continues to thrive. And that team is the one which has caused Kirk TV to be what it is. And I want to thank all of you for this.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner.
Keep it Kirk now and going forward. We have a lot of family programs, and this being a Christian commercial station, we will partner with you as institutions, as individuals, so that we are able to reach out to the entire world. One person said that my parish is the entire world, and I believe that Kirk TV is going globally, and therefore bring your business. We are going to advertise it and also partner with you.
To partner with us, send your financial support to pay bill number 401-9613, account partner. Pay bill number 401-9613, account partner.
Step number 1 to toothbrushing. Place your toothbrush to your teeth at a 45 degree, like this. Yes, exactly like that. Then you do The up-down stroke on all the teeth. We go. Up-down stroke.
Mambo ambayo mwanadamu hawezi kufanya. Umetoa faraja ambayo mwanadamu hawezi kutoa. Haufananishwi na kitu
Yes.
kingine.
So we have our bunny eyes, whiskers and nose and ears.
The Presbyterian Teachers College Rubate is now offering training and upgrading of P1 and ECDE certificates to diploma and hereby invites all applicants for the September 2022 intake in the following teacher education programs: Diploma in Early Childhood Teacher Education, DECTE, required grade discipline in KCSE. Upgrade of P1 certificate to diploma, upgrade of early childhood teacher education ECDE to diploma. The reporting dates are as from 12th September to 12th October 2022 with the option of part-time classes available. For more information, please contact the principal through 0701 508 503 or their office line on 0720 312 021 and 0711 185 283.
The Lord we serve never leaves us, never forsakes us, though we are in storms. The storms might come, the storms will come, but our hope in the Lord, though we may go down, the Lord we serve will never leave us. The Lord speaks every time, whether in the times of storm. The Lord spoke when these people had reached a point of no return.
Good journalism is bold, in-depth, unique, captivates, reflects, and impacts. To quench your thirst for exceptional stories that are about you, from you, and for you, Kirk TV presents itself as the hub of feature stories. Ranging from health and environment,
either there is extreme drought or extreme floods, and these will affect people.
Religion and politics.
And the man looked at the boy, looked at the mother, and told the boy, going forward, don't wet the bed again.
There come a time when the nation is more important than an individual.
Education and socio-economic issues.
Nasaidika kwa sababu nikishona moja mbili nauza, napata kitu ya kulisha watoto.
I have met with other tribes which I have never met before.
To other stories that touch on your day-to-day life.
Njaa ndio iko mingi zaidi. Tafadhali mnisaidia maji ya nyazi.
Tingatinga amekanyanga kila kitu.
Hatujawahi kuona mabadiliko yote kuhusiana na serikali ya kujengea sisi.
Kwanza kitu naweza omba tu nishikiliwe tu pande ya masomo tu ya watoto.
Kirk TV, the hub of feature stories.
right, all right. And in case you're wondering, the melodious voice is that of Closey TK. Karibu sana kwenye studio zetu. And my producer from the word is saying, that music is so great.
Thank you.
I'm saying that I should tell you that your vocals are also on point. And he loves how you put out the music out there.
Thank you so much.
Karibu sana this
Asante.
morning. I'm glad to have you this morning.
I'm glad to be here.
Tell us about that song that just played.
Yeah.
So it's about trust and God.
Yes.
And all. Tell us about that song.
It's called The God of All Times. It's a song that is meant to stir up your faith in those moments, in high moments and in low moments, to remind you that God remains to be God in all situations, at all times. He's the God of the bad times, when you're going through struggles, when you're going through so hard times, and He's also the God in your celebration times. So we need to trust Him at all times. I wrote that song in a moment when my days were not really good, and I had to remind myself that these situations cannot take the position of God. He remains to be God. He remains on His throne. Whether I am happy, whether I'm jubilating, or whether I am sad, or whether I'm in the low moments, in all situations, I need to remind myself, and I need to remind that situation, you're not bigger than this God. This God is greater than anything. This God is beyond, He's above, and He's seated on the throne. The throne can only be on a high place. So He's above any kind of situation that we go through. Yeah.
So despite the challenge that you're going, there is a God in heaven.
Yes, yes,
exactly.
yes.
And someone would be watching and listening to you. Of course, I would understand maybe someone has heard your music for the first time, whoever is watching us, and they would be wondering, who is this Closey TK? What does she do? My producer talked about, your vocals being on point, but they should also know if you're a teacher of vocals, then you also have to be the best of all. Tell us about Closey TK.
Yes. So my name is Closey TK. That's the musical name. So by my full names are Florence Wangoi. TK is Timothy Karanja. That's my husband.
Interesting.
I'm born again. I love the Lord is my savior. I am a gospel musician. I sing gospel music, and I am also a music trainer. So I train vocals. I'm also a session musician. I am also an instrumentalist. So anything that goes about music, you will find me there.
Just there.
Yes. So I train music at PCA Kiambu Town. That's where I work at. And I'm the head of praise and worship team. And just to inspire people to keep singing. And off church, I also do now vocal coaching. I just want us to sing well, especially in
Not
church.
just sing
Not
well.
just sing. Sing excellently. You know, my quote is from Psalms 33 and verse 3. Says, sing to the Lord, play skillfully, and shout for joy. This skill is really important for us to be exclusive in our art when you're bringing out now the gospel through music. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Interesting to hear from you, and I also hope whoever was asking that question has gotten the answer.
Yes.
And talk about your music. I've seen some of your great songs. Actually, all of your songs are very great. Just to compliment you on that, and the creativity around that song, the songs, the lyrics as well, and even the vocals, the beats, and all that. Excellent music. Tell us about your music journey. Where did it start from, and until at this point? I know it's a long journey, maybe, but just tell us about a little bit of it.
So there's so much inspiration from my background, where we grew up from. My father and his brother was a music trainer. So they used to train us a lot in church school, in brigade sessions, in primary school, in high school, all the way up. But I didn't know I had that great of a talent until now. I got after college, after high school. That's when now I realized, actually, this applause I get every time I sing, I think there's something unique about my voice. So I decided now to pursue music after high school. So I was just in church. I hail from PCA. So we were just in church, just learning how to play the keyboard, learning how to sing better. There was a music trainer back then. I was at PCA, Dr. Adha in Nakuru. So being trained by Mwalimu Mulwa, I salute you, sir. You are the one that geared me up to my music career. And after that, I got an opportunity to go for an interview. UNICEF and the government were looking for talents from Nakuru, from all over all the counties, but we needed 5 people from every county. So I happened to be one of the 5 from Nakuru County. And then that's when I got my music sponsorship. I studied music in college. And then now from there, I went back to church, back to singing in the praise and worship sets, singing in bands, singing gospel bands. I've sung with Zidi the band. I've sung with several others. And just pursuing it and getting better at it. And then now indulging into training the same. Yeah.
And talk about that music journey is a journey that has entailed different aspects of it. And from you, since you became, a musician, you call yourself, now I'm a gospel artist, I'm a gospel musician. From that point, what change would you say the gospel music has made to you?
So I always wanted to inspire with my art, with my gift. And I always wanted to use it in a place that will bring a difference, in a place that will help somebody who is really low and hear it and be happy about it, and also be happy about what I'm singing about. So I decided to make it an ambition, to use my gift to package the gospel, to package the word of God, so that when somebody hears it, there's something, they're being ministered to through that song and also being blessed by the voice. So those two things go together, the art aspect of it and then the spiritual aspect of it. So I decided to keep to the gospel music because that's where now the art thrives better, and also now put in the word of God into it, so that when I package a song, it's a message I'm sending. Just like the preachers will come and give a sermon, it's the same thing I'm doing, but now through music. So that those 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the song, when you listen to it, it inspires you and gets you to a place you can really see God in wherever you are, and know that God is overall, and stir up your faith to believing in God once more.
And the songs of more of worship songs, and I've interviewed different artists before, and they've talked about, usually very difficult for you to come up with a worship song, especially if you really want to put out a song that really inspire people and change lives of the people. How do you come up with your worship songs? Do they come to you while you are asleep? Do you wake up in the morning and feel like you've experienced something, you need to write something?
Yeah.
Do you compose your song just from an experience, maybe something is someone has shared their story, you feel that you need to inspire them and make a song? How do you come up with your songs?
Yeah, so inspirations come from different places. Most of the times I'm writing songs when a preacher is preaching, or I'm writing when I am in a public service vehicle, or when I'm somewhere seated with friends. So my inspiration comes from the surrounding. And also there are people I will interact with in those musical seminars that you go about, and you feel you need to inspire someone in a certain way. So there are topical songs, and then there are these worship songs. So most of the times, worship songs, most of the times I get inspiration when we are in a session of a sermon, when a pastor is preaching, when a reverend is preaching. Those are the best times for me to write a song. So I'm always very keen. If I know within the session there's going to be a sermon, then I want to be in the front seat, because that's where my inspiration most of the times come in. And also in my other times, maybe when I'm praying, maybe when I'm reading through the Word of God, maybe when, those are the times now when in my own time, maybe what the preacher had spoken about, now I go to study more about it, and then now get the inspiration that I need now and get to writing.
Interesting.
Yes,
That is quite interesting to hear about how you come up with your songs, especially, there's someone who told me that they sleep, and in their sleep they get a revelation, and then they start composing the music, and now they have to wake up, because if they try to continue their sleep, now the song will fade, and then they have to continue. But interesting to learn about that. And then let's talk about you being a gospel musician and composing songs after songs after songs. There's been talk about the gospel ministry itself. And I was also told about, you know, there is the gospel ministry, and you know, there is the gospel industry.
Right.
The two of them having a different. For you, being a gospel minister in the Kenyan gospel industry, how's the experience been for you?
It's interesting, and there's the music aspect of there's the aspect of the ministry, and there's the aspect of the business. So for me, music is a career. So I carry both. I do music ministry, and I also do music business. So there are so many opportunities within music that you can really make money out of. And for me, it's been great because there are several channels that I earn from. At the same time, I put aside the ministry aspect and also the business aspect when it comes now to full ministry. So I thank God I'm working in a church, and what I do is what I love doing. So as much as you are at work, you also enjoy it because it's a passion. So music, first of all, what I've learned, you need that passion for you to make it a career. You need to be self-driven. You need to go. You need to push. It's art like any other art. You need to push yourself. You need to come out. You need to interact with other musicians and also interact with, be very social, go out. Because the thing with art, people relate with what they've had. People relate with what they know. So if you give them again and again and again, then they will be realizing, oh, that's Flozy singing, oh, that's Flozy's song. And they want to interact with it again and again. So you just want to be very open also and very free with them. And you also want to package yourself in a manner that states out loud that this one is a music minister, this one is a musician. When you come to this side, as in there's a thin line between the aspect of business and the aspect of ministry, but they can all thrive together. So that's what I've realized with the music ministry. That's when you understand that and you get your channels, you will not have a problem with having ups and downs with ministers, with churches, because you have understood. When I go to the church side, I'm going to the ministry side. When I go to this other side, like for me, it's vocal coaching. Now I go to the business aspect of it. So I've gladly been able to strike a balance. So the ministry will not be hurt by the business side, and at the same time, the business side will not be hurt by the ministry side, and they all get fed. Yes.
All right, interesting and great to hear from that. Let's talk about Wimutheru. That is one song that we're also listening, even despite not understanding entirely everything. And it's a very good song. Tell us about Wimutheru.
So Wimutheru is a worship song that says, God, you are holy. It's an exaltation, with adoration, telling God how great He is, how holy He is. And you know, like we said, even in the praise of your song, this the God of all times, and the Asante song, the three songs I've done so far within the year, they are all just to remind me to put God in His position in the midst. You know, this year has had so many things, ups and downs within the nation, electioneering times, economy, all those hard times, and they bring forth so many depression kind of situations in our lives, and you find yourself in a corner, you find yourself struggling in one way or the other. And in all these things, putting myself in that picture and also putting my surroundings, my community in that place, is just to remind us that God remains to be God. Remind us that God is still in control. Remind ourselves that this God is holy. So we steer ourselves up in faith. Let this faith, now, you know, faith without action is dead. Now it's about time we wake it up. Wake it up. Wake it up and tell these dry bones to rise, you know. So when you put God in His place, because He's in control and He's the Father over all. So that's the time you will see Him in action. Because at times we wait on God in a specific time or in a specific way. I want this, I want this, I want this. But at times God gives you what you need, not what you want. You see? So it's good to just remember every time. This God is in control, and this God is high above all. So Wemutheru is a song that we are, after all these things, we just want to tell God, in all things, you are holy. You're seated on the highest throne, and you deserve all the glory, you deserve all the honor. That's where Wemutheru came from. So we wrote it with my good friends. One is called Catherine and the other one is called Rachel. Yes.
I think we can do Wemutheru because my director tells me we have it here. Let's play and listen in case you're wondering which song she's talking about.
Yeah.
Here is Wemutheru by Floyd. I think I've got some lyrics to that song.
Oh yeah.
Meaning you are holy.
Yes.
All right, and it's quite a very great song, and even listening, even if you don't understand, you can feel, the presence of the song, and while you're still singing along.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you having done different musics. There's this you've done Wemutheru in Kikuyu. You've also done Asante. All those songs are worship songs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how people have received your music, how people have received your music. They usually, the perception that always the opposite of a worship song always have the good reception.
Yeah.
But now the worship song, here comes good worship songs. Talk about the reception of your music, and you can also tell us about your highest moment, in your music career as well.
Yeah. So the thing with music, you need to define, first and foremost, that's what I actually tell most of my students when I'm doing vocal coaching. You need to define your voice, and also number two, you need to define your audience. Because a song will not be appreciated by everyone. There are those that want that upbeat, there are those that want that worship that you're doing, that I'm doing, and there are those that want that praise, there are those that want. So you need to understand where your audience lies and feed that audience, because those are the number one consumers of the music that you are doing. So when I began, I didn't quite understand where I fall, and it took me so long. I was doing songs after song after song after song, and I was going to upbeat. I was doing upbeat, but you want to package something that defines the best side of your art. So I was doing upbeat, but my kind of performance and my kind of yes, my voice can do it, yes, because I have a big voice. It can accommodate different kinds of styles. But the definition of my performance or my output when I'm performing that song defines a lot how far you will go with it. So I got to the wrong ones. And it would take me, I would get so uncomfortable when I'm called to maybe to an event in relation to the kind of song I have done. But it's not in relation to my strengths in performance. So unapata, you can't have 2, 3, 4 and sustain them. Eventually you wear out. But the moment I got to understand that my audience is church-based, my audience is most of the time you'll find me in church. That's where my music thrives mostly, because I'm doing praise and worship kind of music. So these are the songs that the praise and worship team will sing and lead the church in worship, lead the church in praise, and it will fit perfectly. So the moment I got to understand that, I realized, by the way, when I do a song, it does very well. And you want that for your music to grow, because it's, especially for me who's taking it as a career, you want it to be consistent. You want it to grow, take that ladder upwards. So when I got to understand that, now I started feeding my kind of audience with my kind of music. And you find it's so fulfilling when you sing a song and you're going to a certain church, ama you're on your way, you find a certain church, they're worshiping with that song, and you're so grateful. So that's something I got to understand. And it has given me high moments, it has given me low moments, because when you're releasing a song, you're not just releasing it. And also when you're releasing, you want to understand the season that you are in and the season that the community is in. So that's why you write a worship song to lift them up in moments they are feeling really low. And when now there comes a victory, you sing the Asante song, you know, and you want to understand the season you are in, the season the church is in, and then now relate with them, because you're with them, you're for them, you know. So when you're writing, it relates to you and it relates to them as well. Yeah.
And even also, as we conclude, because my producer tells me we have some few minutes, very few minutes left, you tell what would be your parting shots? Perhaps someone is watching you and they also would want to, you know, begin a music journey, or they are in between and stuck somewhere. You'd also, you know, give them a word of advice. You being, you know, a music trainer as well as a musician, give them, as you tell us, also your social media pages and where they can find you, and where, if one needs your help, where they can also find you. So the stage is yours.
So for someone who's beginning, the first thing I tell you is to begin where you are. My first break, let me say, you talked of the highs. My first break to start now breaking out in music was, there was a Easter conference in our church. And there was a guest musician that was called Talk of Destiny Connectors. That's how they come. So this musician came to our church for the whole weekend, Thursday through Sunday, and they were so effective. And I was also very active in the praise and worship. So on the last session of the whole conference, that musician stood before the church and he said, I've been observing the praise and worship team, and there's this lady, and with the permission of the church, I want to work with this lady for the next 6 months. I want them to participate in my project, and then after that I will stand with them and make sure they stand. And that's how my breakthrough came. So I want to tell you to begin where you are. Be active where you are. If you're singing in church, be very active. If you're in college, sing in CA, in CU, be active where you are. And then start building. Have a goal. See yourself like in 3 years. Give yourself short-term goals so that they can help you to be in check and on track. So if you also want to perfect your voice, then I am a voice coach and I would like to connect with you. I do online sessions, I do one-on-one sessions, and we can connect that way. You can see me on my social media platforms. I am Flozie TK, Flozie TK, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, every platform on social media. And you can get me on my YouTube channel. Anywhere you find me, then give me an inbox and I'll contact you. Especially on Instagram, it's easier that way, so that we can get to have those sessions and perfect our voices. Because at times it's just a matter of how or yani that fear. But the moment you have somebody, the moment you have somebody to just guide you through, that's where a vocal coach comes in. You are able to build your confidence, even to love your voice, to love how you sound and perfect your sound, and also define where your audience could be best based, so that when you begin on the right track and you move faster. Yeah, so I would be glad to be your vocal coach. Interact with me and
all
we'll
right.
do
And
it.
as we also finish, because my director tells me we're gonna do Asante as we finish, because you know we are done and then there's victory. So we're going to do Asante. Just before we conclude, what do we expect from you in the course of the remaining part of the year in terms of music and music related art and all that?
Yes, so I'm beginning an online session. I will be doing live moments with Flozy on my YouTube channel, Flozy TK Music. That is something we're beginning very soon, by the beginning of October. And also I have 2 praise and worship songs between now and December. So I will be releasing them very soon. So wait for that as well. And yeah, just more about praise and worship and more about vocal coaching, because we do the main thing on camera, and also we also shoot the behind the scenes, so that you see you can also grow your voice from being cracky to being the best and the most powerful vocal ever. So it's a step at a time. It requires consistent practice, and growth will be seen eventually. So just be patient with it, and yeah, so that's what we've been working on, because most of the people I sing with are the people I have trained. So with that platform, we are able now to push ourselves faster and further. Yes.
And talking about that, I just want to sample some quick feedback here, even as we get to conclude by doing Asante. And Nyagodi says, I'm tuned in from Nyahururu, and that is one of your fans as well. And DJ Show Gillian says, I'm tuned in from Umoja, and thank you so much for tuning in as well. As Monica Karanja says that, keep up the good work, Flozy. Our songs are really a blessing to many. I'm watching from Kiambu town. Say hi to our voice coach, Flozy. And then there is a Clement says, I am watching, keep up with the good work.
Thank you.
All right, and that is some of the feedback that we've been sending in, and that is where we wind up this particular session of Entertainment Friday on Kirk in the Morning, but we cannot finish without Asante from Flozy. So do for us Asante as we conclude, and thank you so much for making time this morning.
Thank you.
And we welcome you again and again. New projects, you're free to come and share with our viewers as well.
Thank
you so much for making time. So we do Asante. All right. My producer will do Asante. All right.
Can I stand?
Yeah.